So I've gotten into Warhammer recently, and I immediately feel like a drug addict. But also I feel like a loser when I see the prices. Yup, can't afford any of this. So let's kitbash one using no money, no skill, and from garbage I found in a toilet. Before the kitbash, I had to decide on what to build. The Titan wins because it's on the thumbnail. Sorry, Tank. However, I couldn't find a Titan design that I messed with, so I took a gander at the dreadnoughts, and I fell in love with this one. But I also wanted the size of a Titan, so I'm going to human centipede these designs together as one. Like all artists, I needed a strong canvas on which to build, so I'm using this toy truck. This blue piece will be the Titan's body, but it's lacking a pelvis region. So I went searching, and this random robo leg have a perfect pelvis look. I just needed to add a filler piece between them. Before I can attach the pelvis to the body, I needed more filler, and these two mega block pieces are perfect. Hold on, wait for it. I attached the pelvis to the filler piece by gluing on a Lego gear. Back to the body, I cut out the front part to make room for where the cockpit will be, and after that I glued the body to the pelvis. Next I wanted to build out the front, and I was very unsure on how to do it, and I spent a lot of time trying to figure it out. As you can see, I made this box shape out of old Mega Blocks, but it's too square. Well, it's not entirely square, it has some angles to it, but I'll fix it later. The next thing I did was add these circle bits that the arms will attach to. I also added some gears to the inside as a clever way of adding strength that looks like detail. I felt like making a door, so I did in the form of a Lego wagon wheel and other garbage bits. However, my door craving wasn't satisfied, so I made one for the outside as well. When looking at the mech, I noticed that the door placement wasn't to my liking, so I solved it with a hobby saw. I repositioned it further down and filled in the gaps with cross-stitch canvas. I added more strength, disguised as detail, with this arch-shaped Lego. I added this garbage plastic bit to the back, and then I added a bunch of random junk in hopes of making a very bland looking piece look a little more interesting. These spaces will most likely be obscure by the arms, so I kinda went crazy and used just about anything. I mean, it could not be more random junk. Okay, this was what I had so far, and it was good, but I couldn't get over this bit. I didn't like it at all, and worse, I didn't know how to fix it. I got very discouraged at this point and really considered scrapping the build and the whole video. So I stepped away and I did fun things like having a nice drive. Oh, Kawaii, you're driving? After that, I came back and gave it one more look over. And I found what better crafters would call the bit. These two beautiful Mega Block pieces were exactly what I needed to pull this kitbash out of the depths. I glued the two pieces together at a slight angle, and I didn't like it. It needed to be longer, so I chopped the bottom off and extended it further down to cover up the groin area. This looked better, but I needed to fill in the newly created space. Oh, thank you, Buff Miku.
No problem.
Now, better crafters would probably use green stuff or epoxy sculpt, but not here at Kitbash Studios. We do it the hood way, so glorified dirt and some water will do. Letting the clay dry, I moved on to making some guns, because it wouldn't be a Warhammer build without
guns. Lots of guns.
The first guns I made were similar to these. We start with gluing two pony beads together. Then I added a Mega Block roundy bit to create the two barrels. I added a quick filler piece, then covered up with an interesting piece from the axle of a model car. Back to the mech, I glued on the 2 guns, and since I had guns on the brain, I went ahead and built the cannons that will sit on top of the mech. The base of the cannon will be this garbage piece of unknown plastic. I added this wood bead for the cannon's chamber. I cut in a channel for the shells. Then I attached a sort of hatch on the back because I was thinking that it would open up and expel the shell casings after firing. I added a few more things for detail, including cross-stitch canvas and, of course, rivets. I returned to the mech and finished the front of it with more random junk. From there, I worked out the top of the mech using this piece from the toy truck as a top. I went ahead and detailed the inner part by adding a small hatch and a handle. If you know the lore of the dreadnoughts, you know that the pilot ain't using that hatch. But I did it anyway, just for fun. It's time for me to introduce you to one of the Hall of Famers of this Kitbash. These beautiful pieces of toy plastic are just what I needed for the mech's armor. They're thick, square, and perfect for blowing up, just like electric cars. The armor was simple. I just glued different size pieces together to create the shape I wanted. And naturally, there were some gaps in the way, but some tacky glue and air-dry clay fixed that problem. Once that was dry, I attached the piece of armor. It looked pretty good, but the armor looked like it was floating with no real structure, so I fixed that. There's not much to say here. I kinda just let the flow of garbage take hold of me, and I used anything that looked good. It helped that most of this stuff will not be seen after painting, and that gave me the confidence to use any random junk I could find to fill out the mech's body mass. After that, I added the top plate armor, and I wanted shoulder armor as well, so I used these triangle-shaped pieces that I glued into a interesting fashion. I attached the shoulder armor and then added the cannons that were built earlier. The body is pretty far along, so let's do some leg workouts. I'm using these Mega Block tank wheels, but I needed a roundy bit in the form of this monster stand. After a trim, I placed it in the wheel and it fit perfectly, as if it was made for it. I added a half wheel and the mech's hip joint was looking spicy. For the knee action, a Lego Jack Stone wheel rim will do. My genius way of attaching the knee to the hip was first wire. Despite the obvious problems, I continued and made the ankle out of Lego bits. Looking at these weak limbs, I can't get that one scene from Bambi out of my head. Let's forego the wire and go with beads. To give the leg some more detail and strength, let me introduce you to the second Hall of Famer of this Kitbash, plastic toothpicks. Not only did I use these for the legs, but all over the mech. Anytime I needed some stick action, I turned to these colorful beauties. Next is the feet. I decided to sculpt them out of air-dry clay because I needed 4 identical toes for each foot, 8 in total, so I was smart and I took a mold of the one I sculpted. With it, I had unlimited toe action. I used some cross-stitch canvas to connect the 4 toes, and that gave me 1 foot. Using these S-hooks, I could attach the foot to the leg.
I said, hold up, wait a minute. Something ain't right.
Let's not glue these two together just yet. We need foot armor action. Since the armor has to be circle-shaped, I'm using air-dry clay once more. After rolling out a 1/4-inch thick piece of clay, I laid down this template I made out of scrap cardstock. The design of this template was entirely made up, but it helped me cut the shape out of the clay. Utilizing a super glue bottle, I wrapped the clay around it into the desired shape, and I let it dry just like that. And then I demolded it. Perfect. I slipped the armor onto the ankle and then glued the foot on. As for the knee armor, I didn't need any circle shapes, so I made it out of some scrap plastic. And once again, I used another made-up template. I added some thickness to it with this Lego square piece, then added this circle bit to finish it off. Moving up to the hip, I decided that the hip joint needed more length and detail, and this Lego gave us both. For armor, it was just like before, more custom templates and scrap plastic. I certainly didn't need to make this very complicated armor shape, but I had a Dr. Pepper that day, and that always leaves me feeling frisky. Quickly moving on to the arm, I started with the elbow, and I used 2 Lego rims glued end to end, and that introduces us to our third and final Hall of Famer of this Kitbash: Mega Blocks and Lego tire rims. I use a lot of them in this build, mostly because I have a whole bunch of them from various sets I got when I was a kid. I added what I think is called the bicep bone, and then I added the forearm bone. For the wrist action, I used, you guessed it, a Lego rim cut to size. I added some more plastic toothpicks because I wanted it to look like it could move, or for it to make more sense in a mechanical way, and I think I achieved that. Before moving on to the hand, I added the armor, made in the exact same way as the leg armor, but I didn't use a super glue bottle this time. The base of the hand will be made up of tire rims. Duh. The fingers, however, will be bead action. I built the finger bases with S-hooks and bisected beads. As for the fingers themselves, I used a combination of S-hooks and clay beads to create the joint. I made 3 fingers and 1 thumb in total, and after gluing them into place, they did move, but I didn't trust the S-hook's strength, so before painting I glued them into place. After attaching the hand, I made the shoulder, which was a Mega Block tire with a connector piece jammed into it. As for its armor, it was completely free-handed, no templates, just entirely sculpted in the moment. The arm was looking good, but I didn't like this skinny part, so I added a chapstick cap as a finishing touch on the arm/hand. We move on to the right arm, which will be a minigun similar to this one. I found this ancient piece of trash in my bits box. It's a leg from a Transformer robot I got from the thrift store when I was a young lad. I prepped the piece by trimming the thigh bone and clipping the toenails. Next, I hot glued a joiner piece, and after that, it was time for the minigun's barrels. They will be made out of these dirty caramel apple sticks. I simply glued 4 of them together and then trimmed them to size. To finish them, I glued on a tire rim with a connector piece attached to one end. I drilled out some holes for the barrels and then connected the 2 together. I added some more clay armor, which were the first pieces of armor I made for the legs, but they were too small, so I repurposed them for the minigun. Okay, so the armor was cool, but here comes my favorite part of the minigun, making a bullet chain, or cartridge belt. And this is pretty much ready to go. I just rolled it around a Lego connector and attached it to the back of the arm. After some rivet action, the minigun arm was done, and it's probably my favorite thing about the Kitbash. I love how this looks, and if you were wondering what this weapon would sound like in real life, very intense, huh? Let's return to the mech. The last thing it needs is a lot of detailing, and I started with rivets, and I have a new way of doing them. In the past, I have used rhinestones, and more recently, I used scrap cardstock paired with a hole puncher. But now my go-to is yogurt plastic plus 1mm size hole punch. In my opinion, it's the fastest and best way to get a lot of rivets very quickly. How many rivets did I need? Well, pause the video right now and you can count the holes for science. But to sum it up, I basically used the entire bottom of a yogurt container. Okay, some rivets have been laid, so I moved on to adding some Warhammer stuff, starting with the horseshoe or U symbol made from paper, but more on this later. Next is a Roman symbol for the number 2 for some reason. Then I added the Space Marine skull and wings symbol. With that, the build was done and I put it together for the first time. It came together surprisingly very good, but if we pause the video right here, we can see that this minigun looks tiny compared to everything else. So I quickly fixed that by making a 6-barreled minigun. With the minigun resized and fixed, I would like to say we're done and we could move on to painting, but like everything I make, something else had to be fixed. The toes I made earlier were just too small and I couldn't deny it anymore, so I completely remade them from scratch. I once again took a mold of the blank and made all 8 toes out of air-dry clay. Okay, toes fixed, let's paint. Now for painting, I'm going with the blue Space Marine color because it matches my thumbnail, and it's a good middle ground between Warhammer and Miku, which are 2 things that I like a lot. What paint, you ask? Well, I do have the expensive Warhammer blue. However, here at this channel, we're proud hood rats.
Yes, but I wanted to do hood rat stuff for my friends.
So no expensive Gucci paint. Be gone! 45-cent paint will do. Every Warhammer dude and gals, and probably dudes who want to be gals, use a wet painting plate thingy, but you know, hood rats. So ugly yellow plate and a squirt bottle will be just fine for me. I started by painting the arm to test out the paint, wetness, and color. And after 3 coats, we were what Gerald would say,
Ooh, we're doing good.
So I went ahead and painted the chassis. Note that I only painted the armor blue because everything else will be painted basically silver metallic. However, I can't resist using my favorite paint, copper metallic. But let's practice restraint and only use it in select spots. The only place I went crazy with copper is the minigun. I love how the barrel and cartridge belt looked after painting it all with the copper. Mwah! Chef's kiss. Before moving on, I gave the mech a silver metallic bath. Next, I painted all the gold parts, and that included all the rivets. I thought about the rivets being silver, but nah, gold better. I used flat black to fix any mistakes. Probably should have done this step before adding the silver, but I didn't. After all that was done, I mixed a white and gray together and painted the symbols. I painted the Roman number a nice yellow and black, and it was looking good. But I had these nail polishes, this stamper, and these stamping plates. Now, I've never done this, so let's try it out on the very bottom of the minigun, where no one will ever see it. Basically, I put some stamping nail polish on the plate, and then smooshed it down into the design I wanted. Then I attempted to pick it up with the stamper thing, and shockingly I managed to do it. After a quick cleanup, I stamped it onto the armor. I was shocked how well it came out, but this was all fool's gold because I attempted to do it more and failed every single time. But instead of giving up, I suddenly switched genders and I identified as a nail technician, and I was able to successfully stamp multiple designs. Perfect.
That does look good.
Including this beautiful butterfly, which is a subtle nod to Ada Wong. But the customization didn't stop there. I drawinged on some Miku graffiti, then I wanted to add the letter E over the U, but I forgot how to draw an E, so it came out looking booty flakes.
He sold so bad.
So I just fixed it and then added a store-bought E. Why the EU? Because I named this dreadnought titan Eubella. Okay, next is oil washes, but we're going to go light on the dirty because y'all voted to keep the Titan clean. So a simple black wash to tone down the blue will be good. Okay, maybe just a little dirt on the legs, but just a little. Speaking of dirt, here's a dirt base. Want to see how I made this? Go check out my last video. What won't be seen in that video is grass applied with a static grass applicator. which is an old friend we haven't seen in more than 2 years on this channel. Our beloved Volgin. Name that for obvious reasons. The final thing we're going to make is shells for the cannons. These are real bullets that I'm going to use for crafting. Now I wanted to use the rounds straight up, but 2 things. 1, YouTube threatened me. Man. The other reason was because the bullets were too long for the cannons. So I removed the bullets and gunpowder from the shell casings. I glued beads on the ends, then painted them red, copying the look of the fire rounds from Resident Evil Remake. I added a simple cartridge belt made out of crafting foam. Then I added them to the cannons, making sure to add a shell casing coming out of the back as if the cannon just fired a fresh round. I placed Eubella on her base, and this Kitbash was done.
Hold up. Wait a minute.
Not so fast. I added the little stamp ribbons that I totally didn't forget about until the very end. Okay, roll those beauty shots. Well, this was quite the adventure. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you deeply for watching it thus far. You're a true hero, and Kitbash Studio loves ya. As I mentioned earlier, I will be kitbashing a tank and maybe other Warhammer stuff in the future. So if you have a Warhammer suggestion, dookie it into the comments down below. Okay. Thank you again for putting up with my shenanigans, and if you want to see more, make sure to like and subscribe. Always remember, be kind, rewind, and I'll see you in the next one. Later!